people, Deluded, I'm back again. Now, there isn't much to talk about in regards to the themes that are surrounding Arsenal already there. There's talk of Xhaka being brought back into the team. Obviously, I don't need to talk about the elephant in the room, which is Unai Emery and specifically his future. Every day it's a new manager. At one point, Eddie Howe's thrown into the ring. Arteta wants it. Ljungberg and Bold are going to be giving it. This week it looks like Nuno of Wolves is our new manager, people, really and truly. So we might as well just go over some of the talk now. Apparently, Arsenal's hierarchy have been impressed with the job that Nuno has done, and crucially, Raul Sanllehi has a long-standing relationship with his agent, Jorge Mendes. Now, we've got to be careful of this agent stuff, because in an ideal world, yes, in scenarios when it's players or getting a top manager away from Nuno and whatnot, not having a good relationship with these agents is a good thing, because if we can marry, just in terms of recruitment, if we can marry having excellent scouting, whether a player is known or unknown, we're getting competent players. But if top players or other players, if we have good relations with their agents and they notify us to their availability or make them more likely to come here, then that's all good. And Arsenal have shown that we'll work with Mendes. You've heard us talk allegedly with Kaya Jurukin, allegedly. We've seen us work with Mino Raiola towards the end of Wenger's reign there. Well, to be fair, that's not 100% true, because we did sign Daniel Marlon, who was managed by him at the time. I don't know if he still is. But what does that tell you, people? It does look like, on an ideal world, we can utilise these contacts. But what the flip side of that is, and I don't think it would happen, what you don't want is that Mendes brings a lot of his clients, whether they're young players or established players, and they turn out to not be good enough, but they're being all housed in the same central unit. Do you get it? You look at Wolves right now, they've got a lot of Portuguese players because of obvious reasons, but a lot of these players are Mendes signings. And are they necessarily signings Wolves necessarily wanted? Are they all necessarily good signings? I'm not saying they're not, but do you get it? You could see how we could end up signing players that weren't legitimately wanted, and then when they play and people are like, yo, whose idea was this? We won't actually know, and fingers will be pointed incorrectly. So it could be good. I mean, how can you not be impressed with what Nuno's done? Would Nuno be my first choice? No. If he came, I'd give him time to do his thing. And the same things like Emery. His job would be to install a style of play, improve us defensively and things like that, and eventually top four. Maybe not this year. This year would be a write-off, but the same things that we asked of Emery. Nuno wouldn't be my cup of tea, but he's done good work at Real Ave. I can't say their name. Got them Europa League, didn't he, people? And he got to 2 cup finals. Valencia was a so-so period, which ended in a sour note. Wolves, he's got them promoted. He's currently got them 5th after a sluggish campaign at the start. He's got them Europa League football, so he knows. Is his style of play exciting? No, and that might be something that he'd have to look to introduce in Arsenal with the players we've got. But he plays 3 at the back. Now, they've only kept 3 clean sheets this season, so I don't know but it's more than us, but I shouldn't really be praising it. But with his defensive structure, and Emery is completely different, he genuinely looks like there's a method to his madness. Like, he's telling man, you need to be here to do this, and there's a functioning unit in his team, on top of the fact that they battle and they work hard and all of these things, and his positive energy rubs off on fans and players and everybody alike, similar to Emery's did at the start, people. Apologies, people, I feel like I want to sneeze. But yeah, that's because I would see someone I can believe in, someone that the player could probably inspire. I wouldn't mind him, my guy. I wouldn't mind him, people. There's obviously question marks, and he wouldn't be my first choice. But I mean, we could do worse. Apparently, Arsenal have also said they might decide to put Ljungberg and Bold in charge until the end of the season, when top tier candidates become available. You've heard Allegri wants to wait until summer, whether that's him assessing his options, whether, I don't know, the PSG job could become available despite Tuchel's good work. Pep seems to not sign a new deal at City, so imagine Pep walked, you've got a thing there. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer leaves, the carrot of money to spend at United. Obviously the Arsenal thing, there's a lot of things, and he's just left his Juventus job more or less. Would it make sense him jumping in a team mid-season? Who knows? In relation to Ljungberg and Bold, obviously Bold's appointment would be because Bold knows some of these players, and while he's never been a manager at senior level, he'd be the experienced sort of hands around Ljungberg. Do you get it? Let's not downplay Ljungberg. He's been assistant manager at a club before. He's not like he hasn't got experience, and he does have ambitions, so he's probably been planning for this. But we'll have to see what happens. Obviously, staff apparently are now waiting at Arsenal, whether that's playing staff or the kitchen people. They're waiting to be told the under fire coach has been dismissed at Unai Emery. Apparently, Julian Draxler, now I haven't got all the comments, but this sums up Emery to a degree, to be fair with you. Under Emery, I realised that playing abroad was totally different. I consider him a very good coach, but with him, the communication was sometimes not always easy. So do you see where I'm going with this, people? It sounds a bit bulky, doesn't it, people? Finally, you've obviously got Aubameyang. Apparently, he shelved contract talks with Arsenal over concerns over our ability, which we already knew, over our ability to not only challenge for trophies, but get top 4. I've said it, people. If you're Aubameyang, unless you really can bring in a manager which you can make him believe that these next 3 years in his career are going to be special and he should stay, why would you want to? If a legitimate offer does come from Madrid, Barca and these teams, and it's more than paper talk, you can't begrudge him for keeping it moving. You can't. He's in his top career. Even if he was to get a manager who could develop these young players. For me, Aubameyang, that's 30 or turning 31 this year. It's all good telling me Saka, Martinelli, Pepe, all these guys can be great players in the future, and they could. Pepe would be 26, he'd be in his prime. Saka and that, who knows where they'll be in their early 20s. But how old would Aubameyang be? 33. And that team would still be going through teething issues, people. So he's got a lot to think about. He's obviously comfortable in London and the London lifestyle. But if the offer does come from the 2 big boys in Spain or somewhere else, for me, he'd have to keep it moving, people. He'd really have to keep it moving. It wouldn't make any snowballs. It wouldn't make any sense for him personally to stay, people. So that is that. I actually I can't find the article, people. Someone released an article and it was in relation. It was PSG fans talking in relation to Arsenal fans, people. I'm gonna try and give me a sec because I'm sure I can find it. If I can't, then I'll just tell you what was said. Yeah, apologies, people. I can't find it, but it more or less shedded light on. It was an alarming article. It more or less said what happened at PSG, and then obviously it touched on Arsenal. It's like the parallels are there, people. He failed to get players on side. 1 minute he fails to understand that he can't rest 7 players and then bring 7 players back in. Fails to really utilise the squad. It more or less highlighted inconsistent rotation and bewildering decisions. Ineffective communicator, ineffective principles in terms of what he wants to do on the football field. Just everything that looked alarming in regards to what he's doing now. Failed to get the likes of Thiago Silva on side, Neymar on side, which he was already fighting a losing battle. People, I apologise. Rookie mistake like David Luiz conceding penalties. The battery weren't charged. And yeah, actually I have 3 batteries and I managed to find a way of not managing all of them. So similar to Emery, we both can't make use of our top front 3. I got the 3 batteries. He's got Aubameyang, Lacazette, and obviously Nicolas Pepe. Apologies for that, people, but where there's an L, there's a W. And the comments I was alluding to before technical difficulties stopped my rambling is just if you type in psgtalk.com, I don't know who they are, but I believe it's PSG fans. I don't know who runs the website. But I read their stuff quite frequently, and especially when Emery came to Arsenal, and they do a good little thing of what they do, good little articles in that relating to PSG. But if you go and look at a number of the articles they've released in relation to Emery over the period, and you read them, whether it's directly correlations to Arsenal or it's stuff that's happened at the time when he was managing PSG, you read into them and it's almost history repeating itself. And I always tell you, look, managers have to reinvent themselves, people. You keep the core principles of yourself, but you look at Klopp at Dortmund to Liverpool. Obviously, they're the same side, essentially. The principles are there, but compare his first Dortmund side to when he left, they obviously evolved. Liverpool the same. He's changed stuff. He's had to accept that he couldn't do certain things and had to do things in relation to the league. Pep the same. Emery's kind of failed to do that, failed to evolve and failed to challenge himself. I thought, Emery, you come here, you know it's a top 4 thing, you know you need to improve away games and how we defend. You had a culture shock when you came to the league. Obviously, anyone would, coming from Spain and obviously managing in different leagues and coming to the Prem, should have learned where I went wrong and sought to move forward. Because I'm sure if we could see our players thinking a bit more and conceding less of the comical goals, we could say we're moving forward with something. There'll be something to get behind. And I feel Emery's kind of failed to right his wrongs, which he's done at previous clubs. Like, he's had poor relations with Neymar, obviously. Star relations is always going to be tough. Thiago Silva as well. Never fails really to get the dressing room. And one of the articles, I can't remember where I got it from, people, but it said this. It said, Emery's flaw resides deep in his character. It resides in most of us, and we rarely fully conceptualize it. It is that a truly good man cannot play God. The coach must decide who metaphorically lives or dies. not based on what makes most people happy, but what is best for the collective. Emery knew what to do, but in the face of resistance, opted for comfort and accepted it. Now, apparently he didn't want to make Xhaka captain. Xhaka was captain, not to drop Xhaka in it, but that could be an example of that. The whole Mesut Ozil thing, potentially even as far as back in the days, well, last season of Lacazette and Aubameyang starting together. The collective process that went behind selecting the captains as well. Apparently, he didn't even want to do the 5 captain thing in the format they did it. We don't know if he wanted to, he didn't know if he didn't. I'm just talking on the various conflicting media reports you and I read. But that somewhat seems true. You kind of got to make, this is what I'm saying, you got to make your mark. You look at Klopp. Everybody thinks Klopp is a nice guy, and obviously Emery's got a ruthlessness about him. But Klopp had to have that ruthlessness with certain players. Obviously, people think Klopp, he is a nice guy, he's a lad, he drinks beer and that, he carries on a certain way in a positive sense. But beneath that is a serial killer in football terms. He's had to say to players, yo, listen, I'm doing it my way, or you're not on this. Pep the same. Now, obviously, Emery's done that. He's frozen out some players. He's sold some, even down to the young players. I wasn't happy with Jeffrey Adelaide personally leaving. But he said, yo, you're not part of my plans, you need to go. So Emery has done that. But to be fair, people, does that sentence not sound familiar to you lot, or is it just me? And then moving on, obviously it's at the time, people, he said, he appears unable to rotate properly, either switching out 8 players or none at all. He cannot be trusted with youth players. And I'm not going to read it all, people, but well, in fact, we might as well. As can be seen with Zagadou, Augustine leaving the club, Nkunku and Lo Celso mysteriously being admitted time and time again. He does not know how to make substitutions at all. The Spaniard seamlessly forgets that he has the ability to switch out players 3 times a week for 90 minutes before panicking and making a questionable decision. When all is said and done, his in-game management skills are nowhere near what PSG need, and he'll continue to prove it to the club's higher management every week. Obviously, that was at PSG. Now, to be fair, he's given, I think Martinelli should get more chances, but he's played Martinelli. Obviously, Saka's played and whatnot. So we have to be fair to him this season, more so than last. Fair enough, last season there was a lot to do. He's given them players, he's given chances. But a lot of what I said, a lot of what Better Yet They said, people, can be, you can kind of draw examples or parallels right now at Arsenal, can't you, people? Bewildering decisions. Either the whole squad changes or no one changes. If it is 1 or 2 changes, it's Torreira playing up front, Aubameyang left wing back. At this rate, who knows, man? His assistant coach might even play up front and whatnot. But yeah, man. This is ultimately where Emery's gone wrong, people. It's ultimately where he's gone wrong, really. It's, for me, if I had to pinpoint where it's gone wrong, it's just defending and game management, really, is the 2 core things. That's it. Before we talk about player relations and all of these things, if we could defend and he was more reactive than proactive, I wouldn't say nothing personally, people. I wouldn't, because I could see a system, whether that's how we attack, how we defend, and, you know, it might not be perfect, but I could see a system. It's like with Nuno apparently coming. People say he's a defensive coach and they're questioning his credentials to be Arsenal's top 6 gaffer, same way they said that about different managers, obviously, but Rodgers, same way, people. But what I think it would be completely different under Nuno, not in terms of success, but at least Nuno, at least at Wolves, you see there's a clear way of playing and a clear way of a system, and the players are then, you know, at least we could see a blueprint of such at Arsenal. Then you could say, oh, Nuno is too defensive and all of this and all these things, or any other manager. You can't really question Emery because ultimately he's done nothing. And it is what it is. I do feel sorry for him at times, because obviously hearing that he had an event, I believe, with a university, it was cancelled for fear of not necessarily comments in regards to Arsenal, but negative comments, people. And that's sad, really, because I suppose a lot of university students have missed out on an opportunity to plug the brains of whatever his criticism at Arsenal. He's still a quality manager. He's won 3 Europa Leagues, pro license, managed in the game for so many years. Them expert brains and whatnot. It's great. It's good. And what I don't like with people with Emery, and it's not Arsenal fans in general, but it's more, I'm looking at the media team. You know when they make fun of Emery's good evening? I believe there's humour and then there's a bit of a, I don't know what's the words, people, but it don't really rub me up the right way with that good evening stuff. They're taking the mick out of him a bit, because same way English is not his native tongue, he can speak Spanish, I assume French. He had a spell in Russia, same way he probably can do a bit of Russian. And he's shown, for whatever we say, and I question mark his communication, of course, people, but he's taken to the challenge of trying to speak English. So when you see that some words he uses or some phrases, you get what he means, but it might be off. There's a humour to it, and he plays up to it at times. He's laughed at the good evening and whatnot, and it's not just him they've done it with. Done it with Claudio Ranieri, for example. But the media need to lie with all of that, man. I don't, from a human point of view, I don't really like that, man. I'm just here to criticize Emery purely on what he's doing on the football field, really and truly. I would love Arsenal to turn it around purely because I would love to have a positive season. But I see this season as a write-off now because we never started it in the right way. I told you, look, from pre-season, you've got to decide what you want to do as a club. Ultimately, Emery's failed to introduce a system and somewhat stick to it. Game by game, obviously, you can change up things, but stick to it and move us forward. Because we should be talking about the next 2 and 3 years, excluding this one, people, 3 years or so, of consistently becoming a team that's evolving this year and making steps to being a consistent top 4 side again, similar to when Arsenal used to be mocked for that. Then you can talk about Premier League titles and things. Obviously, if recruits come in, we can either temper expectations or get above them. Because it's going to be a difficult one now, people. It's a difficult season now. And I'm very concerned moving forward. I hope we get our transfer market, not just for this season's summer, well, next season's summer market, but also next, because whether players are going to be staying or going, we have to really have a plan B, plan C, plan D in terms of who leaves, who we bring in. And does the club have that? Only the club can answer, people. But on that note, I'm going to get out of here. People, Deluded, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. Apologies for the technical difficulties, but we got there in the end.